Okay, so we'll go ahead and get started here. Welcome, everyone. This is our Lunchbox number 5, I believe. It's hard to believe we've already been through a few of them. And today we are spotlighting sweet potatoes. So, of course, we are the Southeast Organic Partnership at Tuskegee University, and we are delighted that you have joined us today. We've been kind of focusing on specific crops over the last couple weeks, starting out with squash 2 weeks ago. Then we moved to tomato last week, and today we are highlighting sweet potato. And the idea here is that we are addressing some problems before you have to deal with them. So during these summer months, the Lunchbox is focusing on pest and disease problems that you might be dealing with right now as we speak, or in the weeks to come. And then in the winter time, we will focus our Lunchboxes on, different types of topics that aren't so field specific. But these are kind of the urgent issues. And I do want to encourage anyone that does have questions to just chime in when you have them, and I will try to facilitate that. Again, my name is Leslie Grill. I'm the project coordinator for the Southeast Organic Partnership. And Dr. Chitturi, when you are ready, I will pass it over to you.
Today, based on the lunchbox, I just wanted to discuss briefly about the major pests of sweet potato. So, as you can see on the screen, so primarily the insect pests, they reduce the yield and quality. So as you can see, like primarily the insect pests are two types, which are above the canopy, and the other one is below the ground, because the sweet potato with the tuber. So we have to focus on the above canopy, the foliage insects, and also the soil-borne insects, which majorly infest the tubers. So as I have listed here, you can see, yeah, these are the major foliage feeding insects like the hornworms, the armyworms, beetles, loopers, whiteflies, aphids, thrips. Coming to the soil insects, as you can see here, like I have just listed the major soil insects, like into major categories like weevils, white grubs, wireworms, and flea beetles. So coming to the major foliar insects, I kind of try to make a brief note about. So the major one is the hornworm. As you can see, I had the moth here as well as the caterpillar. So this is the sphinx moth. You can say, like, I'm not getting into the technical names, but I'm just getting into the common names, like it's based on a visual sampling, like what you see in the field. So this is the hornworm adult moth, so which, as you can see here in the next image, is a caterpillar. So it's a very heavy bodied caterpillar, stout, and you see a horn in the front. So that's the, and you see a horn on the caterpillar. So that's the critical identification you see. And then, so these hornworms, they lay eggs which are singly, they are laid singly. But the amount of damage they cause to the crop is really tremendous. So this is one way, like when you can see in the crop initially on the foliage is, you see the caterpillars feeding, and it's going to be a significantly more damage. Like you see the same situation in tomato, and but in tomato, when you have it on the foliage, it's also going to eventually reduce the fruit yield. And in the similar case in sweet potato, it's going to indirectly and directly affect the yield of the tuber. And the next one is the armyworms. Like I just put it like in a nutshell, like the beet armyworm. And this is the adult moth you see here, the Spodoptera exigua, which is the beet armyworm. And this is the moth. Like usually you don't see these moths in your crop, but the best way is like monitoring through pheromone traps. But eventually you can see the egg masses because it's an organic system of production. You can usually see in the field like the egg mass of the Spodoptera like laid in clusters, like a moth, a single moth in like about a weekdays, like it has several generations over like in a period of like about in its lifestyle. It says overlapping generations, but you can see a big egg mass, and then that's where these tiny caterpillars, they come out, and this is what the caterpillar you see in the field. And so I think like you can see like you have like three stripes, like if you put your three middle fingers, you have three stripes and a spot on right side of the caterpillar on the front side, like in the anterior side you see a spot on either side. So the critical demarcating features when you see a armyworm in the sweet potato is the three striped lines, and that's it. Like it causes extensive damage feeding on the foliar. So then the other damage you can see on the foliar is in a group, like you see beetles. So beetles, like you also have beetles which cause the below surface like the tuber damage, but you also have certain species of beetles which cause above the canopy damage. So the first one, as you can see, like there are different species of tortoise beetles. Like the first one is the tortoise shell beetle, where you see a shell on the top. These are like the general insects I'm trying to give. Though we are region specific, but these are some of the things I just wanted to highlight. There are several pests, but these are the primary things. And right now with the sweet potato crop, we are still not through. Like otherwise, I would have given you like a more exact picture of what you can see in the southeast, the pests on sweet potato. So the tortoise shell beetle, so this is the beetle adult, and this is the green tortoise beetle where you can see this. And the damage, how you can identify is like you see the shells of the beetle on the leaf, and you see like these grubs like sitting on here and feeding, and this is the typical characteristic damage you can see when a beetle is feeding on the leaf. So so this you should not be it shouldn't be like a confusing thing when you are seeing in the field. A beetle damage is different than a caterpillar damage. With a beetle damage you see shells on the leaf, and then you see tiny grubs. So this is just I'm talking about the foliage beetles. And then as you move, so these are some, and also like some of the other pests I thought is like the looper, the cabbage looper. So the cabbage looper is a common thing where you see a loop like this, and eventually when you, so it's going to be feeding on the foliage, which is ultimately, if the foliage is gone, the yield is eventually going to affect. And the other one is the white flies. I think we've already discussed in the previous squash and tomato pests. So whiteflies are tiny white spots you see on the underside of the leaf, and they're going to suck the sap and make the plants shrivel, or like the green tissue is scraped out, and eventually the plants are going to wilt and shrivel. So the other one is the aphids. We've also discussed this in the previous two crops. Aphids, wherever you see honeydew, ants, like the plant is infested with aphids. So these are the nymphs, which are the younger ones, which is stick on to the underside of the leaf and suck the sap. And these are the alate adults, where you see flying. But these are the key things we see on the underside of the leaf, like tiny spots on the underside of the leaf. And the next one is the thrips. Like eventually when you see a sweet potato leaf, this is how the thrips damage is going to look, because they are about a size of 0.5 to 1 mm. It's very difficult to see you visually in the field until and unless like you see on the underside of the leaf. But the typical character is you look into the visual symptoms, the type of damage, and as you can see here, you can, I'm just trying to zoom this one. Yeah. So you kind of see a patchy, like like a white silvery damage when it is infested with the thrips. And also the key thing is the the folding of the leaves. So it's not of a significant damage caused by thrips in sweet potato, but like these are the thrips you can see, like black dots like that are sticking onto the leaves. It's a different species of thrips, but they're not like significantly, they cause that much of damage when compared to squash, when compared to tomato, as we have seen in the previous crops. So the major things would be the hornworms, the armyworms, the beetles, the loopers, uh, and 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 whitefly. Whitefly is the number one problem in sweet potato. As like I was going through the literature, you see most of the varieties that were developed in sweet potato, or for the resistance, or the varieties that were developed for the white flies. So whitefly is reported as a major problem, but again we have to see in the southeast or in the areas where we are growing, like how to what extent is the dominance, the population dynamics is influencing the yield of the crop, because it's just one of the several insect pests, but it's also one of the major pests that can cause a drastic loss and to the yield. um, and then next one, I would like to switch to the underground, the tuber infesting beetle insects. So as you can see, the sweet potato has a little bit different pest dynamics, as you can see when we discussed with the squash and tomato. Here we have to focus on the below ground yield, because it's the tuber that's going to be primarily we will be focusing on when growing sweet potato. So as you can see, this is one of the top listed. White fringed beetle is the one that causes damage in terms of in the species of the beetle complex, and then followed by white grubs. So you don't see this damage until the tuber formation in case of white grubs and wireworms. Um, so these are you see at the later stage of the crop. But if you don't manage your foliage feeding insects, ultimately it's going to reduce the yield of the tubers. So the white grubs, as you can see, so you have to be periodically looking into the soil management as well, like where you see the sudden wilting of the plants and the sudden dying of the plants. So we just have to ensure, like, there is no white grub, the grub damage, because it feeds on the root and we don't see the damage until the plant shows the symptoms. And the next one is the wireworms. This has been one of the serious problems in the southeast. Yeah, so this is also seen at the tuber stage of the crop, but eventually, even before they attack the tuber, you have to look into certain soil management practices, and these are the topmost, the tuber infesting insects that can cause damage and resulting in significant decrease of the yield. And the next one is the flea beetle, whereas in the other crops, in tomato and squash, these flea beetles are going to be feeding on the foliage and causing into the upper canopy of the plant. But whereas in a sweet potato, it has a dual role where the grubs kind of go into the soil and feed on the roots. So in one of the literature papers, it indicated like a cutworm too, because it kind of, the grubs kind of chew on the roots, and so they're going to drastically influence. So the adult can feed on the upper foliage, and whereas the grub can feed on the root, causing significantly impacting the yield. So these are some of the common insect pests I just thought to highlight in sweet potato. Though there are several pests that have been listed, but I just thought like these are some of the key things. Since now the sweet potatoes are going to it's kind of starting close to, I think in our case we still have the plants are like still in the vegetative stage, so they're still kind of in the form of in transition stage from vegetative stage. So like these are some of the common foliar insects, as well as the root infesting insects that I just wanted to highlight in this presentation. But I think maybe later part, we can as we keep progressing with the crop, we can eventually prioritize and then look into the management aspects, like how to control these insects. Maybe at this point I just thought to highlight some of the key insect pests that can affect the foliage and that can affect the tubers. And then maybe in the next presentation, or probably next time when we meet, maybe we can look into in detail the stage of the crop and the management aspects in depth. Yeah.
Now, if there are no comments, there are a few. I want to highlight one additional insect pest, which is the sweet potato weevil. But I would first of all wait for comments and questions first.
I wanted to know about mole crickets. We have a lot of mole crickets on our farm, and we have refrained from growing sweet potatoes because of that. But is that not a big problem? Mole cricket damage to the tubers.
Yeah, it is one of the major problems, but again, like I kind of looked into only overall about the major pests. So it depends on, I think probably the area and the previous crop, what we are growing, and also the sanitation of the field. That is what I wanted to add. But maybe Dr. Franklin has a lot of experience. He worked a lot on sweet potato, so probably Dr. Franklin would be a good insight. He could add a very uh, a good answer to your question. Yeah.
Thank
Now,
you.
now, yes, more crickets. We always want to manage more crickets, but first of all, I want to have. If you have problems with more crickets, I want to know what's the extent of the problem. How are you monitoring? How are you discovering just how many more crickets you have? How are you handling that so far? How are you assessing the situation?
Mole crickets then are a problem for sweet potato tubers.
Yeah, I understand. What I'm trying. Are you currently having that problem yourself?
On our farm, yes, on my farm. We
Yes.
do have a mole cricket problem, which we've lived with for years and just work around it.
Yeah.
But
Now,
they will destroy germinating seeds, for example. They will just go down and destroy rows of germinating seeds.
yes.
We have set traps for them, and we have used all of the latest research trying to control them.
Yes.
And do a pretty good job, but we've just refrained from growing sweet potatoes, thinking that just might be too much.
Yeah. And are you using any rotation programs, moving on to other areas that don't have this problem?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And I'm interested when you talk about trapping them and other monitoring methods. I want to know exactly how you are doing that. There are a couple of reasons why I'm asking.
How I monitor them?
Yes.
Well, actually, when I see a row that has been planted,
Yes.
and the telltale sign shows that the mole cricket has eaten the seeds, then I know. And I can also use a baby swimming pool.
Yeah.
And light above it.
Yeah.
And soap in the pool.
Yes.
And I can catch hundreds of mole crickets at night.
Oh, okay, now I'm getting an impression of just how bad the situation is. I get it now.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Now, I know you said you've read a lot of research and experts, but if you don't mind, we now have a ticket system where you send in the situation that you have. I would like to continue this discussion with you and also add a couple of things that could help deal with the issue.
Uh-huh.
So Leslie will perhaps explain the ticket system a lot better, but when it comes to us, it will be an open ticket that comes, and we will keep working on it, and until we come to a logical conclusion, or at least as close to a solution as possible. There are some pest problems that you want to just relocate a particular host plant somewhere else, but there are other things you can do, and we can be working on it until we both of us declare the ticket closed, the issue resolved. So if you don't mind, I would like to do that. Based on the numbers you just gave me, you have a serious infestation of that.
Good. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so Shirley, what you can do right away, while I work on getting instructions out for the ticket system that Dr. Quarcoo is talking about, go ahead and just send any pictures by email that you can of any of the damage or evidence or just anything. Go ahead and send that, and we're going to get you both connected after this so that we can follow up and help you resolve that issue.
Thank you. Dr. K had taken a picture of some of the mole cricket tunnels when he was here a couple of weeks
perfect.
ago, but we will do some more and send to you.
And go ahead and send that to organic@tuskegee.edu.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And thanks also for your faithful engagement on these calls. It's really great to get your feedback on what's going on your farm. We just really appreciate that, and encourage anyone else to let's definitely talk about these issues.
Yes.
So that's what we're here for.
I want to highlight one additional pest, insect pest. Can I do that?
Yes, go ahead.
Can I share my screen?
Give me 1 sec. I'll make you the presenter. Okay, Franklin.
Yes. Okay.
Do you see the invitation to be the presenter?
Yes, I see it.
Okay. All right, we can see your screen now.
Okay, I'm going to where I need to go. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can. You're good to go.
Okay, so the picture I see is management of the sweet potato weevil in storage, but it doesn't necessarily have to be in storage. So I'm going to focus on the sweet potato weevil. When it comes to the amount of damage insects can do, one of the most devastating problems you can ever have, and this is worldwide, there are different types in different parts of the world, is what we call the sweet potato weevil. It can cause damage all the way from maybe 20%, and you are getting towards 80, 90% damage. Problem with this weevil, the larvae or the worms that you stage that you see in here, it's tunneling into the tuber or the root, causing all kinds of problems. And then the taste of the sweet potato is just terrible. And the weevil, when you are in an area which is declared under quarantine for this weevil, it means you cannot even transport any sweet potato materials out of that region to other locations. And another plant I want you to take note of is the morning glory plant. I should have put a picture of it here. It is a close relative of the sweet potato. So even when your sweet potato is not out there in the field during the growing season, those morning glory plants that have beautiful flowers that look like ornamental plants, and you want to have them around your field, and so you don't think about getting rid of them because they look good. Well, this weevil uses that as an alternative host during the off season, and then gets back to your crop. Well, another thing is we use these pheromone traps. to monitor for the weevil. What we basically do, up there you see between the green part and the yellow part, you see something there. It's actually the a synthetic version of the female sex pheromone. And what that does is that the scent is so strong, and that's what the male uses to find the female for mating purposes. And because that is a highly concentrated version of it, what happens is that the male is attempting to find what it thinks is the most special female in that entire area. So instead of actually mating with the actual females that are around it, it will be trying to find this particular female that is here and fly in, hits that section, and then falls into this container, which we usually put a poisonous material that kills it, a poison strip that kills it in there. The reason this is allowed in even in organic production is that you can use an organic pesticide, you can use other things, but whatever you are using is not getting out of this container. The insects come into the trap and are killed inside the trap. And if you are growing sweet potatoes, this problem is so bad that even when they find one or two weevils, which are going to be male because it's the female sex pheromone attracting them, it is considered extremely bad news, because you know the worms go into the tuber, they cause a lot of destruction, and even in storage they are going to be active. And so we actually put some of these traps in the storage unit when we are storing sweet potatoes to trap some of the emerging adults that come out. They are very resilient. Like I said, they cause a lot of problems, and our threshold of tolerance for the sweet potato weevil is so low, because you find one or two in your trap, that's enough bad news. That's enough bad news to have people running in all kinds of directions. And because if you don't manage this thing properly, you will lose a lot of your roots. I'll add one last point when it comes to management. If you are growing a short or an early maturing variety, and you keep the variety out there in the field longer than you are supposed to keep them, which will cause a lot of the development of what we call the jumbo-sized roots. Once you have those jumbo-sized roots instead of US #1 or Canes, once you have those jumbo-sized roots, especially when you are growing in an area where water, there's water stress, and maybe your soil is a little clay, there's going to be a lot of cracking of the soil around that jumbo-sized root sweet potato. So once that cracking happens, it's like a direct highway for some of the weevils to now come from the plant and get back to the root. So irrigation, making sure your soil, your plants are not water stressed and your soil has enough moisture, believe it or not, becomes a management method for this pest, because you are not going to have a lot of cracking and open highways through which the insect can get to the root. Are there any questions?
Either questions, or has anyone seen this particular pest on their farm? Go ahead, Franklin.
Yeah, so that is one pest that I want to highlight for the insect side. Is there any other things anybody would want us to talk about when it comes to sweet potato pests? I have quite a bit of information, but I just want to keep within the time and be sure I am answering questions that are very relevant to everybody.
What about, can you give us an update, either Dr. Quarcoo or Dr. Chitturi, on our research plot here at Tuskegee? We haven't really we have the sweet potato planted, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so have you seen any pests in our Alabama region?
Dr.
So
Anitha,
far.
you want to take that or you want me to take it?
Yeah, you can go ahead, Dr.
Okay. Now, at our Tuskegee side, I've observed some strange things in the last, I would say, 8 or so years. When it comes to sweet potato pests, at Tuskegee in particular, especially our research station, we seldom have the major pests that cause economic damage. Okay, so we will have some leaf hoppers in there. Every now and then we'll have Colorado potato beetles in there, but we don't have issues with sweet potato weevil. We will have some cucumber beetles. The closest we come to having something that is a little major that could cause problems is cucumber beetles. So that is not representative of what happens in the state of Alabama and other locations. And in fact, I've been trying to find out what is peculiar about our research station that keeps sweet potato pests at bay. Whatever that is, I would like to replicate it everywhere, but we've not been able to put our finger on it. So the pest that I'm talking about, or the lack thereof, is not representative of the state, and in fact the Southeast. And so it still does not tell us what's going on in this area. But if you are asking about the kind of pests that cause problems in other areas, yes, we have the sweet potato weevil, which I said is a major pest. We have what we call white fringe beetles. We have quite a number of beetles or leaf-eating organisms that cause problems, and as far as some worms that we talked about, we have some Diabrotica species of beetles that cause problems. We have some June beetles that cause problems. In some areas, we have what we call the spring rose beetles that also cause problems. But we have not noticed, of course, leaf hoppers, aphids are almost everywhere. We have some white flies as well. So those are the things that we are observing, but they have not gotten to the population that we will say is a major problem that needs any chemical intervention.
Okay, so thanks so much. So just as a reminder to our growers, and again, this is going to be recorded, so even if you're not live, just a reminder that at the first sign of a pest, it's ideal to go ahead and take pictures of the pest itself, the evidence on any foliage or any other area of the plant or ground, and send that to us. We are going to implement a ticketing system, kind of like a support desk, and we will be getting that information out to you. But for now, please feel free to send it to organic@tuskegee.edu, and make sure to copy copy your main project contact. Would that be Dr. Barrickman, Dr. Davis, or Dr. Pomblico? And we will be sure to answer those questions as soon as we can and provide details on how to resolve them. So with that, we are running up against our time here. So I want to give one last chance for anything that anyone wants to ask or say. Okay, everyone. Well, thank you so much for joining us. And again, Dr. Chitturi and Dr. Quarcoo, we really value your time. Now, these folks are out in the field all day long. So they kind of steal away to the computer just to talk with us for a few minutes. So we really, really do appreciate all the hard work that's being done by everyone in the partnership. And please feel free to call or email us with any questions. And we will see you next week. Next Monday will be our last crop-specific lunchbox regarding pests or disease, and it's going to be on Southern Pea. And we will be getting all of the recordings of the lunchboxes up and shared out to you as soon as possible. And we thank everyone so much for your time.
Thank you.
All right. Have a great day.
Thank you.